Good evening, everyone. It's good to be with you tonight for Judges Training for the regional contests. My name is Rebecca Tabor, and I'm the state coordinator for Connecticut History Day. And I really appreciate all of you signing up to judge. We could not have contests without you. And you all know that it's been a little bit of a struggle. So we really appreciate all of you signing up to support us. And tonight, our goal is really to talk a little bit more not so much about the logistics of the day, but to talk about the judging and the rubrics. And this is, we decided to continue what we were doing in the pandemic by doing pre-contest training, because this allows us to have that discussion. Not that I'm going to keep us online for hours on end, but we don't have to be so rushed because we have to rush out for the first interview. We have a chance to chat a little bit because, as you know, judges have an important role in History Day. Students have worked really hard for months on their projects. And so we really want to give them the best feedback, the best experience that we can. And I really appreciate all of you and your work for doing that. I wanted to kind of introduce my assistants here tonight. Mariana Garcia is our tech person who is with me in my home studio. And then Cindy McManaman, who you know is our woman of many titles, who helps in the state office as well and serves as the Mansfield coordinator, and she's monitoring comments online and will answer them, and if there's something she can't answer, she'll bring it to my attention. You can put up your comments and questions if you are having trouble doing that. I think probably Cindy already posted this, but you can email us at info@, I just went blank on what it is. info@historyday.org. So you can email us there if you can't put the comments up. So I think without further ado, if Mariana, can you bring up our slides and we'll get started. We'd like to just first start by thanking our sponsors. Well, I should start by saying that we work at the Connecticut Democracy Center at Connecticut's Old State House, and we are very thankful to those folks who help fund our work, including the Connecticut Humanities CT Cultural Fund, Housatonic Heritage, the New Haven Museum, and Franklin Foundation. And our purpose of training today is to talk about your role as a judge, to talk a little bit about the contest structure, to talk about entry evaluation, talk about ranking and giving feedback, and then having a chance to ask questions. The day of the contest, we are going to ask you to arrive at 7:45 to 8 o'clock. We're not doing this as a form of torture. What we do want to do is to get you into the contest, have a chance to have some coffee, and we will go over the logistics of the day and also just review a few things the day of the contest. Because some of you, if you're not judging until March the 18th, that's a whole month away. And I don't know about you, but I have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast yesterday. So we will do a little brief summary and we'll go on. So all of you on the ZFair system should be able to access our general materials. Those include judges instructions, which help you log back in, the theme narrative sheet, the 2023 theme video, the list of special prizes, the student voice handout, the glossary and judging tips handout, and for reference is the NHD rulebook. We do not expect you to have that memorized. And then today I started with the Norwich contest, and tomorrow our friends judging in Torrington will hear from me, but I've started sending out information about your judging assignment. And in those assignments, you will see category instructions for most of the categories, except for papers. You'll have a video you could also watch, and then the rules for that category. We're not sending these to you as suggestions to look at. We're sending these to you as resources that you must read because or view. You know, the nice thing is we have some, like the narrative, we have both video and worksheet. The reason why it's so important is that we're all singing from the same sheet of music, including the students, because these are the same materials that students have looked at. And so with National History Day, and some of you who have done History Day for many years are like, oh, Rebecca, I know this. Why are you telling me? Well, we do have a lot of new judges joining us, and welcome to all of you. We're excited. It helps us spread the word about the program. So just as a reminder, Connecticut History Day is one of the affiliates of National History Day, and we have two divisions. We have junior, which is middle school, and senior, which is high school. Within those two divisions, you have 5 categories. For papers, only an individual can do papers. But for documentary, exhibit, performance, and websites, students can either choose to participate as an individual or as a group. And groups can be between 2 to 5 members. So that means we actually have 9 different categories per division, and you will only judge like versus like. So what is your role as a judge? Well, for students, the journey consists of starting off with research, and that probably takes the longest part of their time. Most of the fall and winter that they're researching their projects, they're looking at primary and secondary sources, and then they're analyzing it. And this isn't kind of like 1, 2, 3. It's much of this is concurrent, but that students not only are researching, but they're analyzing what they're looking at. And I'm going to just pause for a second. Jen Hunt is texting me, Cindy, that 3 of her judges need the link. So if you could just maybe reach out to her. I'm sorry, please excuse that interruption. So to just kind of reiterate, students are in the History Day journey of research and analyzing their sources, and then they're going to create a project. They can choose which project type they want to do, and they need to share the conclusions and support with evidence. And then the part where you're going to intersect with them is the competition. You know, when I talk about History Day, I never talk about it as a competition. I talk about it as an academic program, because the reality is that a minority of the students are going to walk across the stage at the award ceremony. What's really important are the hundreds and thousands of students who are gaining important skills by participating in this program. So in some cases, students have started out at a school contest. We're a regional contest. There are 6 regions here in Connecticut. And then the students who finish in the top 3 at a regional contest move on to the affiliate contest. In other words, our state contest. And at the state contest, the top 2 finishers are eligible for the national contest. We also at the state contest have about 20 or more special prizes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I just want to say right now we're really focused on the regional contests, but we would love to have you join us on May the 6th for the state contest, which is being held at Central Connecticut State University. So far, we only have 20 judges, so we'd love for you to sign up. We can move on. So your mission as a judge, it's to foster a love of history, to respect every student, and to offer constructive feedback for all. Every student who participates gets feedback on their project. Give every project equal consideration. Whether or not those people who know me know I love British history, I love the British royal family. If I was judging, I could not give extra credit points if students chose a topic that I liked especially. We have to give every project equal consideration. We want students to have happy memories. Whether or not they win, we want them to have good memories. And you, the judges, will be selecting the top 3 projects that go on to the state contest. And students are welcome to use the information, the feedback that you give them, that they're welcome to use that to improve their projects for the state contest. And at the regional level, you will nominate anyone who is heading to states or state qualifiers. You can nominate them for a special prize for consideration at the state contest. One thing I do need to mention is with student safety, and this is one of the slides you'll see when you come to the contest. Sometimes students wear things that identify them in terms of what school they're at, or they might forget and put their school on their title page, which they're not supposed to. That's something you just kindly put in the in their notes to remind them to take out. But I'm sure most of us have worked with young people. So just basics of don't ask personal questions, don't take photos of students, and don't be alone in a room with a student. This is the good thing about consensus judging, is that you will always be in a team of 2 or 3. So contest structure, we'll talk a little bit about that. For those of you who are experienced judges, things are going to be slightly different than they have in the past. Well, we are back to being in person, which is fabulous, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I am thrilled to get to see all of you. It's been a little lonely for the past 3 years doing online chats and not seeing people in person. What's similar is that we will be in person, that websites and papers are due 2 weeks in advance of the contest. Tomorrow actually is the first of our website and paper deadlines, and those of you who are website and paper judges for Torrington and Norwich will be getting them this weekend. But what's different is that for documentaries, performances, and exhibits, on the same day that websites and papers are due, we're asking those students in documentaries, performances, and exhibits to upload their paperwork, their title page, their process paper, and their annotated bibliography. But here's the difference. For websites and papers, we're locking their projects at midnight tomorrow. They cannot make any changes to it. But for the documentaries, performances, and exhibit students, they have up until the day of the contest to work on their project. So they're going to bring their project to share with you on contest day. They're also going to bring copies of their paperwork. And it might be different. There might be changes. There should be changes, we're hoping, of what they turned in on the deadline. That's totally fine, and that's encouraged. All we're saying to the students is make sure to highlight if you've made a change. So that's something that's different. Here's what we're hoping will happen. That you, the judges, by having a chance to look at their paperwork ahead of time, you'll be able to kind of get familiar with the topic and be a little bit better prepared as you sit and watch a documentary or look at their exhibits. The reason why we're not asking everyone to upload their projects 2 weeks in advance is because, as those of you who work in schools know, that every day is precious. This is actually pretty early in the year for schools, and they need every day that they can get to work on their projects. So before contest day, you will be receiving, and you probably already have received, email from both ZFairs, which is our contest registration system, which that's your login and your password, or from the info@historydayct.org account. Now, the info account could be an email from me, it could be from Cindy. We both use it, but it will be one way of communication. So, as I said, today I reached out to the Norwich judges. Tomorrow will be Torrington, and then we'll proceed onward. And that's where the email comes from. What I do when I send out your division and category assignment, I do CC the entire judging team, so it kind of introduces you to your fellow judges. And one thing I just want to say is I do actually look at what your top choices are in terms of judging preference. But in some cases, where Hartford is a great example, we have very few senior projects. So even if you said, I want senior division, I might not be able to give that to you. I'll try to get the category you asked for, but we have to make allowances depending on who actually has signed up. Before the contest, so you're going to be getting material to look at. Make sure you can log in to the contest URL, and also that you can re-enter the system. Again, if you have any trouble, let us know. We'll help you. And for captains, do reach out to your team members to say hi. Let us know if you can't reach someone, or if you're someone who has signed up to judge and all of a sudden something happens and you can't make it, please let us know. Every year we know life happens, and we've had folks who've had a loved one pass away. I remember one year, one of our wonderful judges was calling me, or his wife was calling me because he was on his way to the hospital apologizing. We understand. Please just let us know if you can. So for website and paper judges, we're going to ask that you wait till you get an email from us from the info at email address saying, hey, it's okay to start judging. The reason for this is because we're going to check and make sure that everybody has their websites and their papers loaded. And if they haven't, we'll get in contact and try to find out what's going on. It is totally fine to connect with your judge team before the day of contest. In some cases, I was just emailing a couple folks judging at Norwich in papers. You have a remote judge, and thank you to our friends across the country for helping. But you have a remote judge, so you need to connect before the contest, and you can do that through a Zoom meeting. We are asking that our website and paper judges fill out the online evaluation forms, just like you did last year with the virtual contest. What we are asking you to do, though, excuse me, is that we ask you to complete it Thursday by midnight prior to the contest. So for instance, our first contest weekend, which is March the 4th, which is Norwich and Torrington, you would want to have your evaluation forms turned in by March the 2nd at midnight. Why are we asking you to do that? Again, not as a form of torture, I promise, but it's to give us Friday to print off all your evaluation forms, and we'll have them in the folders for you. On contest day, you're going to discuss with your judging team how you want to, how you have evaluated the projects. As I said, if you've got a remote judge, you can do this beforehand on Zoom. If you want to do it beforehand, you can do that. Just one thing to keep in mind is that you're going to meet the students. You must not let them have any inkling of how they rank or anything of that. That's a surprise. And we'll talk a little bit about ranking in a moment. But for all projects, they need to all be ranked. And in many cases, Norwich as an example, we have a paper runoff. So we're going to have a runoff team working on that. For papers, we do paper seminars, not individual interviews. And that's really just to give paper students a chance to have more of an experience in chatting with other folks. So we will have a printed ranking form at the contest for you to fill out, and we will have we will also have a special prize nomination form as well, and you will have your printed evaluation forms. And if you want to make a change, you can write something on it, but we will be turning those over to the students at the end of the day. Okay, and off to the next 3 categories. So for performances, documentaries, exhibit judges, as I said before, you're going to receive an email alert telling you, hey, it's okay to read your paperwork. And that consists of the title page, the process page, and the annotated bibliography. Captain, check in with your team, make sure everyone can still come. And prior to the contest, do review the paperwork through ZFairs. Take notes to bring with you. Note anything you would like to question. However, don't use the evaluation forms, please. Don't touch them. Don't use the online ones. The difference is that on contest day, you are going to get the updated paperwork through ZFairs, and then you are going to receive, you're going to see the projects that day, and you're going to have blank evaluation forms to fill out. And I'm sorry to say, you do have to write by hand. And what's a little different, again, to our experienced judges, is that if you're a judging team of 3, each one of you will have your own set of judging forms that you'll need to fill out, and they will be returned to the student. Now, why didn't we do everything online? Here's the reason. Technology, as we all know from the last few years, can be a challenge. And relying on Wi-Fi, relying on having enough time for everyone to type things out and to print them out to get them to the students would have been a challenge. So we're kind of doing hybrid. At the state contest, we might try to do it all online and see how that goes. But, you know, we're kind of taking baby steps. And we're going to talk about evaluating the projects against the rubric and discussing strengths and areas of weakness. Again, like the other teams, you will have one ranking form and one special prize nomination form. So judging teams, you should have teams of 2 to 3 judges. We are still looking for judges for Fairfield. So if you have time on March the 18th to judge again, please join us or grab a friend. The goal of judging teams is to achieve consensus. It's to give a message to students that is not exactly uniform, but is alike, so that it gives them clear guidance to their projects of what was good, what could use improvement. For students in papers, you'll have your seminars, as I mentioned, and then you'll have interviews for websites. Also with you'll have interviews as well for documentary performance and exhibits. I should mention at this point that all interviews are open to the public except for exhibit. The exhibit hall is kept closed. But students will receive forms from all 3 judges. And in each team, someone who is an experienced judge is nominated as the captain. Now, here's what the captain's role is. Contact the team, alert us if they can't reach a judge, or if there's any other issue that comes about. They also because we have more paperwork, we don't combine all of the white sheets into a gold one anymore. That's past history. We have 3 sets of papers for each project. So that's a lot of paperwork to get through. So we're going to ask our team captains to help us do the first edit, or the first look, I should say, at paperwork. When you're looking at evaluation forms, the check marks, and we're going to get to this in a second, they don't have to be exactly the same. They should kind of be in a similar range. Like if someone, let's say Mariana says something is, outstanding, and I say, no evidence of it, that's going to be confusing to a student. You want to give them a clear message. Where our evaluation forms need to be exactly the exact same is in the rules section. Now, I'm going to show you that. You need to check we found rampant issues last year and the year before of, we'd say it, hey, check that your rules, yes and no's are in alignment, and they were all over the place. And so that's something that you, the captains, need to make sure that your team is in alignment with. It's really, this isn't a contest about rules, but it does have rules as guidelines. So familiarize yourself with the rules for your category. And if you have questions, ask us. But you do need to make sure your team is in alignment on the rules check marks. Those must be exactly the same. The captains, we're going to ask you a couple of new things here for our experienced friends coming back. But we're going to ask you to, first of all, when you come back into the room, get us your ranking sheet. Get us your ranking sheet. Then worry about the evaluation forms. But what we're going to ask you to do is to take a paper clip and just clip the 3, let's say we're looking at projects and we have all the evaluation forms for Mariana's project. So clip the 3 judging sheets for her project, and then do that for all of them and put them together. Help us get organized and make things run as smoothly as possible. The captain needs to ensure that the team submits the evaluation forms and that they're clipped together, the ranking form and the special prize nomination form. Here is something that is new. We are asking you, please do not leave. I know everyone's kind of at the end of the day, hey, I'm done, bye, here's my papers. Don't do that, please. Wait until someone from our team wearing our lovely blue shirts has looked at your evaluation forms. We review all of them. Now, I don't want people to feel offended, like, oh, they're checking on us. Well, we are checking on you, but we're doing it because we want to make sure that all the rules check boxes do align. And we also want to make sure that your comments are legible and that they make sense to students. Now, when I go to conferences now, I'm one of the more experienced History Day coordinators. So I've seen in the past, where misunderstandings happen because something maybe isn't explained as well as it should be. And we can help take a look with fresh eyes and make sure that doesn't happen. Here's one thing. So the captain has these roles, but here's one thing that the captain does not get. Anybody know what that is? The captain does not get an extra vote on how things rank. We have had in the past captains who feel that because they're captain, they get to make the decisions about their team. That's not how it works. We are a democracy. So if you're a team of 3, you may be outvoted. And that's just the way it is. It's democracy in action. So we'll move on to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit more thoroughly about entry evaluation. There are 4 parts to every entry. The first is your title page. This is required for all of the categories, including websites. You need to, the students, I should say, need to include their name, the division, their category, their word limit for the process paper, and their word limit for their project, except for performance and documentary, which don't have word limits. They should not include school or teacher name or town. So this will be on the title page of a website. But if a student by mistake puts their school or teacher name, just remind them in your comments to take that out. And then to the second thing that you'll see is the process paper. This is a 500-word description of the research process, which is required for all categories. It should not include quotes, images, or captions. What it should include is answers to these questions. How did you choose your topic? How does it relate to the theme? How did you conduct your research? How did you create your project? What is your historical argument, and in what ways is your topic significant to history? On websites, this will be embedded as a PDF. Then on to the fourth, and maybe the most important, or I should say the third, rather, I'm losing count here. I'm a historian, not a mathematician, right? Is your annotated bibliography. This, it is History Day. 80% of what the students are judged on has to do with history. So this is really important to look at carefully because it gives you a sense of the research that the students have done. The annotated bibliography is required for all categories, and it must include a list of all the sources consulted, be separated into primary and secondary sources. Some students separate it further, but that's not required. Annotations must be no more than 2 to 3 sentences and answer 2 questions. How did you use the source, and how did the source help you understand the topic? With websites, this will be embedded in the website. It will be as a PDF. And then last but not least, the project itself. We've already talked about the fact there are 2 age divisions, there are 2 types of group sizes, and there are 5 categories. So for rules and criteria, there are 3 things. One is that we have the NHD contest rules, that a rule book. That is in your materials. There's also a shorter rules for your category. And the day of the contest, we'll have a handout that's rules for all categories, which has like the NHD general rules that are applicable to all of the categories, and then going category by category. And then we will have category instructions and evaluations. It's really important to remember to compare projects with judging rubrics, not with each other. And we'll talk about that in a second. So this might seem like we're going into a lot of detail, but some of you have been away from judging for a couple of years. And so this is, or you might be new to it. And this is really important. And one of the things we learned in the pandemic is that although we've been saying this, sometimes perhaps the message doesn't come through. So we really want to make sure that our judges understand what judging is all about. And, I'm happy if anything's unclear, put a question in the comments, feel free to, contact me later, but we're here to help. And, we will be dividing and conquering. So the first couple of weeks, Cindy's going to be at one contest, I will be at another, but you can come to us and talk to us, and we're here. We'll be in the judging room the whole time. So the levels of achievement are the column headers. The criteria are on the left column. The descriptors are the text in the boxes across each row. And then there is space for written comments for websites and papers. Of course, you'll type that in. And then there are category-specific rules on the backside of the page. So we'll break that down a little further. So 80% of the criteria for National History Day is on historical quality, historical argument, in other words, the thesis or claim, the theme, the tie to the theme, whether there's wide research, primary sources, historical context, multiple perspectives, historical accuracy, significance in history. 20% is on clarity of presentation, and that is basically two things. One is category specific things about how the presentation is done, and then also student voice. And again, we'll talk about that a little further. So let's get to agreement on a couple of definitions. A historical argument states the central point or focus of a project in 2 or 3 sentences. It is sometimes called a thesis or a claim. This is the foundation for any good project, is a thesis. We've done workshops with students where we talk about what makes a good thesis. And a thesis is an argument. Students are using this argument and they're using evidence to prove it. It is not a statement of fact. It's a statement of intent. And it doesn't have to be labeled as a thesis, but it needs to be in the project. The annual theme. In National History Day world, we have an annual theme every year. And this year, the theme is Frontiers in History. People, places, ideas. And so that's kind of the unifying theme. Now, students don't have to have the 3 kind of people, places, ideas. They should have some of that. And those are words to help students think about their topics and really fully explain them. But the theme sheet and the theme video will help define this year's theme. And it really goes beyond just using the word. It's really connecting to the fundamental ideas. The connection must be evident. And this is a separate criteria in the judging rubric. Every entry must connect to the annual theme. But here's the thing. Let the students persuade you, and don't have a bias of, oh gosh, that political history must be more worthwhile a study than, say, social history. So let the students really convince you. And students can do any kind of history from local to world history. Excuse me. So I foreshadowed this a little bit, but yes, this year's theme is Frontiers in History. Students must consider the historical significance. They must support their argument as it relates to the theme. They don't have to address people, places, and ideas, all of them. And there are a ton of topic possibilities. The cool thing about History Day is we tell the students, what do you love? What are you interested in? And explore your passion. So it can be any subject area. But what students need to be able to show is short and long-term effects. One of the most frequent questions I think Cindy and I get is, how many years should a topic be? Some people will say 20 years, but there's no hard and fast rule. It's really if it's long enough that you can see some kind of long-term effects. A good topic is one that needs an argument. Let the students convince you, and keep your mind open to new topics, because students, I've just been blown away as usual with the really interesting topics students are exploring. So wide research, what do we mean by that? Wide research refers to the variety of types of available sources. One of the best pieces of advice one of our judges ever gave students was, when it comes to secondary research, read at least 1 book. And so this is really talking about, did students look at books and articles? Did they look at credible websites? We try to make sure students understand that you can't Google your way through a project. You can't, oh, Joe Schmo wrote this great website about the American Revolution. Who is Joe Schmo? What are his credentials? There's great stuff online. And I think a positive of the pandemic is this focus on getting so much material online. Chronicling American History has great newspaper stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff online, but is it credible? Articles, letters, artifacts are used in research, and this applies to both primary and secondary. Look for quality over quantity. There is no magic number, I'm afraid, for how many resources a student has. Consider what they're doing. Let's say someone's doing a medieval medieval English topic, which I would find very interesting, it might not be as easy to find a primary source as it is to find one for perhaps the Vietnam War. And keep in mind, some of us on this Zoom are professional historians. Students might not be aware of the latest historiography of a certain topic. And so that's your opportunity to share with them. But, keep in mind that these are young people who are in 6th grade. And something I just want to say, and you'll hear us say it a few times throughout the contest season, you need to really keep in mind learning loss. You're seeing students who have been severely impacted by the pandemic and the learning loss. And I think we're just on the cusp of understanding how much students have suffered. So perhaps students who normally would be at a certain level by, let's say, 8th grade might not be there. So it's your job as judges to provide encouragement and help them grow in their academic prowess. Primary sources. Most of us know what this is. A primary source is connected to an event by time or participation. So they can include all kinds of things: an eyewitness account, letters, speeches, diaries, etc. And they are really judges look at the primary sources to see how they are used to develop and support the historical argument. Again, quality over quantity, and will vary based on topic. Someone's doing ancient Egypt might not have many primary sources. So historical context, this is the larger setting in which a topic took place. So a colleague once described to me what a perfect History Day project is, and it's kind of the same for all of them. At the heart of a project is the event that's being talked about, the central piece of the project. But to understand why this event was important, you need to have some historical context. So let's say we're talking about women's suffrage, or the first woman to be an attorney or to be a judge or something like that. You have to understand the time that this is taking place and why this is a frontier that's being crossed. So you need that context to have a greater understanding of what's going on in the world. It helps, as a judge, you're going to be looking for seeing if the students have an understanding of what came before and what came after and the connections with the topic. Does the student see the topic fitting into the historical surroundings? And what's relevant versus what's interesting? Sometimes we get students who like to default to, let's do a biography, and so was born in this year and they married this person and they went to this school. Not always relevant. I always tell students to be vicious with what they include. For examples, you only get 500 words. So you have to be a tough editor and what's really germane to your argument. And that's what should be included. Multiple perspectives. Now, let me just start by saying that a multiple perspective, if I can spit it out there, is one point of view. A perspective is one point of view, one person's experience or side of the story. It's important to present multiple perspectives. So a topic is viewed from more than one point of view, primarily those with different opinions. So again, going back to women's suffrage, not all women wanted women to have suffrage. Some women were against that. Some men were pro-women's suffrage and some were against, so showing different points of view. Judges need to consider the project and the research. It may be more apparent or nuanced depending on the topic. And here's the thing, it doesn't have to be a 50-50 split. It doesn't have to be 50% pro-suffrage and 50% anti. It doesn't have to be divided like that, but it should show that there was a different point of view. And this is something we tell students, and this is something for us to remember as judges. Other perspectives might be different from your beliefs or the student's beliefs, but that doesn't mean, but that's okay because we're not those people. That doesn't mean they're our beliefs. It's stating what people believed in a historical event. And accuracy. Sometimes when I run after people on the street, just kidding, but close to it. When I'm always asking people, please, would you judge? People will say to me, but I'm not a historical expert. Well, I'll tell you something, friends. I have an undergraduate degree in history, and I'm not a historical expert. Nobody knows all history, right? Because we have so many different topics coming in. But for NHD, historical accuracy really includes three parts. It's accurate, you're not finding any obvious mistakes, it's credible, and it's without critical omissions. So like you have general knowledge. So let's say that someone's saying that people were taking the plane during the American Revolution. People were in airports during the American Revolution. Well, most of us that would raise a red flag because it's like, well, that's not true because they didn't have airplanes in 1776, right? So there are things that are going to just show up like, oh, that doesn't make sense. So don't feel like you have to be the world's expert on every historical fact that's in their project. This is really, I think the significance in history is often one of the things that students struggle the most to understand and to share. I have seen a lot of projects in my time about Martin Luther King Jr. And students will often write a thesis statement that with this rousing finale of, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech changed America. Where are the specifics? How did he change America? What action steps? So understanding real impacts from a topic is important. What's the impact or consequence of a topic, both in the short term and the long term? So I've seen a few projects that are talking about the Pequot War. And so if you saw a project on that, you would want to see, well, what's the immediate impact of the war? What happened to the people who were involved? But then what's the long-term impact? So you want to look for those two things. And I often tell students, it's the so what question. Why should we care in 2023 about your topic? How is it impacting us today? How did it change history? And you know, it doesn't matter if it's global or local. Let's say it's a very kind of focused project about New London and just talking about what happened in New London. That's okay, but you just need to see the impact. Clarity of presentation is 20% of the total evaluation, and it's going to be slightly different for each category because they're specific to each category. So what clarity of presentation is asking is how effectively do the students use their chosen category to present their topics. It varies by category except for one thing, student voice. So what do we mean by student voice? What we're saying is that student voice refers to a student's ideas and analysis. The student's ideas should be clear and in balance with the supporting evidence, such as quoted material from primary, secondary sources. It's included in each category and look to see how easy it is to identify in the student's project. Are these ideas in balance with or overwhelmed by supporting evidence? And this was moved to the clarity of presentation section in last year. But here's the thing. You might have a sixth grader. It's probably likely that a sixth grader is not going to come up with some brand new historical theory. But what we do want to see is that the students looked at the historiography, they looked at what other historians said, and they came up with their own conclusion. It might be the same as what another historian said, but it's their own words. Here's why. We saw a lot of projects whose conclusions were literally quotes by a historian. So-and-so said blah, 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 blah. We want to see it in the student's own voice. And that's really what we're saying. So here's an example of student voice. This is a project about that was done a couple years ago, I should say. I'm sorry, just and chlorora. Is that how you pronounce it? Yep. So you can see that the student talked about how snow was able to pinpoint how cholera was spreading, but his opposers had to know why. His work wasn't validated until the latter half of the 19th century, when it became understood that diseases were caused by microorganisms. And you can tell this was the year it was breaking barriers. John Snow broke barriers in science and social perception by disproving the commonly held mimosa theory and authenticating that cholera could be spread by water. Now, they do include a little quote, but the majority of the words, so the student ideas are supported by, but not overwhelmed by evidence. This is a good example of it. So we're going to just spend a couple minutes talking about clarity of projects. Each one is different, and each of the 5 categories really has a real world application, which is kind of exciting. We see our alumni working in the film industry, doing all kinds of cool things based on their History Day experience. So with performance, a performance can be up to 10 minutes, and it needs to have a dramatic arc that advances a historical argument. It is not students standing and giving a lecture. It's an actual performance. There are characters and there are scenes that are developed and connected to historical argument. Students have to write a script, but they don't turn in the script. That's not something you get. And for technical, the speech is clear, it's effective, it's expressive, and it's appropriately paced. For exhibits, this is a really good picture of Zach Brody, who was one of our students a couple years ago. Projects can be no more than 6 feet tall, so Zach is over 6 feet tall. For written materials, that the text is clear, concise, free of grammatical or mechanical errors, and appropriate to the topic. I always tell students, remember, we're looking up at your project, make sure we can read it, and that visuals and media are connected to the argument and enhance the topic. It's clear in structure and organized, and the font and color choice are appropriate and readable. For documentary, the audio is appropriate and easy to understand. Just one note is that you only students who are involved with the project can narrate. So it's not like you can go hire Diane Smith to be your professional narrator of your documentary. You, the student, have to do it. And it's okay if only one of the students in a group does it, but the visuals are appropriate and support the narrative. I think sometimes with students, I've seen videos where they reuse the same images. This is where making the right project choice for your topic is important. And then with technical, the narration is free of mechanical or grammatical errors, and the volume is even. And then websites, the text is clear, concise, free of grammatical and mechanical errors, appropriate to the topic, that the visuals and the media are connected to the argument and enhance the topic. The website is clear in structure and organization, and the font and color choice enhance readability. One thing I do need to mention for websites and exhibits, any image and any quote, whether it's primary or secondary, needs to have an identification. That is not a bibliographic entrance. It's just a citation that says where it's from, and that is required. And you can see examples of that in the rule book, but that is required. And for documentaries, the last section of the documentary should be credits. Again, it's not a bibliography, but it's just saying, images from Library of Congress, Connecticut Historical Society, blah, blah, blah. And those are 2 things required. And with papers, these can be between 1,500 and 2,500 words. The citations are written in an NHD approved format, which is Chicago style or MLA. The citations credit quotations and paraphrased information. And again, this is another one is really important, that it's error-free, it's free of grammatical errors. And one thing I just want to say about websites and papers, the judges will get those 2 weeks in advance. And while let's say you're looking at a paper and there are a lot of grammatical mistakes, don't feel like you need to do the red pen thing and tell them every single one. What you might want to do is say something like, we recommend that you have someone read this, you have someone read this to check for errors. With so many grammatical errors, it really takes away from the readability of your paper, but you don't have to sit there and do every red pen of every mistake. So I know this is going on a little longer than we'd hoped, but I do want to spend time. This is really important, because my role is to be an advocate for the students. And Cindy and I have been on the road along with our other regional coordinators. We've been on the road. We've seen how hard these kids are working. And so we want to make sure that you are as prepared as you can be to give the students really good feedback. So at the top of each of the evaluation forms are the levels of achievement. The column headers are used to label columns. They are not used to evaluate an entry. So at the top, you'll have exemplary, proficient, developing, novice, and not evident. So if you're looking at a project, I'm going to use Mariana. Let's say she's doing, what's a topic you would study, Mariana? Colonialism. I was just thinking that actually. Colonialism in Puerto Rico, how about you say? So we're looking at her project. I think Mariana's project is darn awesome. If that's true, you don't just look at the top and say, she's exemplary, I'm checking everything in that. No, please, my friends, don't do that. What you need to do is look at the descriptors. The text in the boxes across the page for each criterion. They identify the key characteristics you are looking for. Now, here's why you don't want to just look at the top and say, Mariana's project, exemplary, she's getting middle. That is not helpful for students. We redid the evaluation sheets a few years ago to be more like rubrics, like what students and teachers use in school. But here's the thing, it does not help students if you inflate their judging forms. And here's the thing, a sixth grader, and I'm not putting sixth graders down, please understand me, friends, but most sixth graders are not going to be exemplary because they don't have the skills yet to do some of that cognitive thinking. So really look closely at the descriptors and say, does this describe the project I'm looking at? Oh, yeah. So here's an example, historical quality, the theme. You can see not evident it's just not there. And we tried to use this similar word so there's some consistency. So I'm looking at Mariana's project on colonialism in Puerto Rico. Does the annual theme have minimal clarity and the connection to the topic in the project and argument is unclear? Is it somewhat clear and connected to the topic? Is it mostly clear or is it consistently clear? And as I look at it, I think, I love her project, but I have to say it's developing. You have to read these to really make the right choice. And we have tried to be consistent with this, and so that the wording is consistent, but select the descriptor that is most true based on the project that you are looking at. It's not, and let's say I'm looking at Mariana's project on colonialism, and I'm looking at Cindy's project on Scottish history. You don't judge what's on this evaluation form based on, well, I think Mariana's going to finish, and she's going to rank first and Cindy's going to be second. Don't judge on that. Really be true to this form and looking at the descriptors and saying, okay, I'm looking at Mariana's project now. What's most true? So picking the right descriptors are not exact matches comparing different things. What they're doing, and this is a pie example our friends at National shared, which always makes me now crave pie. But descriptors create a continuum comparing the same thing and determining how much there is. Is it minimal? Is it somewhat? Is it mostly? Or is it consistently? And that's what you're looking at. So an example is the historical argument. A novice would be civil leaders from the 1930s to 1960s use music to communicate a message. That's stating a fact. It's not really formulating an argument. Developing is use music to raise awareness and communicate to the broader public. So he's starting to say how they did it. They sang to demand attention for their cause at various levels. Proficient is talking about using music to communicate their goals. The music helped to demand attention for their cause, even when the American public did not always want to hear it. And then exemplary is giving more, it's giving more specifics. You can see how the specifics are increasing. The music helped to bring awareness to the movement, drawing young activists from diverse backgrounds and communicate ideas that the American public did not always want to hear. And so again, that's something that a sixth grader probably can't get up to exemplary. And that's okay, because you know what? These are evaluation forms being used for sixth graders through 12th graders. That's a really big development change from a middle schooler at the beginning of their middle school career to a senior in high school. So rules help you compare projects, apples versus apples. There are some that are general for all categories, and there are some that are category specific. But remember, NHD is a contest with rules, not all about rules, and we'll talk about that in a second. So a word that I've heard so many times over the years is disqualification. Will this get me disqualified? The only thing that will get someone disqualified is if they're entering a project in multiple categories, they're reusing an entry from last year, they're plagiarizing, or they're tampering with another entry. If you have concerns with any of those things, and let's face it, it's easy to find plagiarism now. Just put like a paragraph out on the internet, do a search and you can find it. If you have any concerns, please come and talk to me. What we have found is sometimes those are teachable moments where students, especially really young students, don't really understand note taking, and that changing one word is not totally changing it. They still, it's a quote, but a minor infraction. So, and I should say that the regional contest is in some cases the first time that someone is looking at a project. So this could be the first really good adult feedback students are getting. A minor infraction does not give a competitive advantage. So for example, exhibits can only be 500 student written words. Let's say Mariana's project that we were talking about, it has 502. Now, do you think those 2 words are going to give her a huge advantage? Not really. Or something I think you're going to find a lot of, because people don't follow rules, as we know. They're missing a title page, or they're missing information on the title page, or Mariana put the name of her school on her title page. Those projects can still go on. Just note in your written comments, hey, as you move along, remember you can't put on your school name. But it's harder and has more impact if it gives a competitive advantage. So a website can only have 1,200 student written words. Let's say a website has 2,200 student written words. That's a big advantage, and that's going to impact their ranking, and that's where you don't really want to advance it. Again, note in the comments, and sometimes there are hard choices to make, because maybe Cindy's project went over by 600 words, but it was really good, and the other project wasn't. So sometimes we're not going to make the decision for you, because you're the judges, you're looking at the projects, we're not, but we're a resource to talk to and talk it through, and that's often helpful. So don't hesitate to come up and say, hey, we're having trouble with this. That's what we're here for. So ranking and giving feedback. I promise we're coming to the end, friends. So there's a difference between evaluating versus ranking. Evaluating is assessing how well an entry did against the criteria. In other words, you're filling out the rubric just simply focused on the project in front of you. It is what you do when you select the descriptors. It has nothing to do with any other project but the one you're looking at. Once you've done that for each project, then it's time to rank. Then it's time to determine the relationship. So for example, a runner's time in a race is true no matter the strength of their competition. That's evaluating. A runner's rank in the race depends on how well the other runners do. That's the difference. So written comments. There is space on those sheets for two spots. On the online form, you have to have at least 500 character minimums. I will tell you, one of the reasons why we do look at evaluation forms is when you're writing them at the contest, if you don't have much information, we're going to hand it back to you. And it's not that we're trying to torture anyone or make them mad at us, but students have worked really hard, and what they really need to walk out the door with their evaluation form and understanding, or forms I should say, is understanding what did they do well and how can they do better. And the best way you can help them do better or to understand what they did well is to be specific. Vague comments like "great job" aren't going to help a lot. So let's talk a little bit about comments. Written comments are so important. They support your decision of where things have panned out. They provide details to support the check boxes. They give you guidance. I know one of our students did websites, and he'd save his evaluation forms year after year and look at them to help, and they show appreciation. You know, a lot of our students, as I said before, aren't going to be walking across the stage. This shows appreciation for their work. We want every student to feel valued. And you know what? You might look at a project and think, this isn't a very good project, but you don't know the struggles a student has been through. And we all know that the last few years have been hard on teachers and students. So, you know, right now, with 2 weeks to go to our first contest, I'm already getting the email saying, oh, this student's dropping out. Yeah, they're dropping out too. So the fact the student got there and finished it is an achievement. And you don't know what they've struggled through to get there. So make sure that every student feels that appreciation. We recommend a comment sandwich. Start and finish your comments with something positive. Now, you might be looking at a project and think, oh, there's nothing I can say about this. What about, I love how you selected a really unusual topic, or the colors you use in your exhibit really enhanced the topic. You can find something positive. And then in the middle are the constructive comments. Vague compliments like good job, you know, maybe that's okay to start off with, but it's not really helpful. Put yourself in the role of the student. What would you want to know when you're reading your evaluation? So find more sources. Okay, but you need to, if you're critical, you need to give elaboration. So find more sources. You know, you need to give specifics, like find more sources, because most of your bibliography was focused on online, or, you know, consider looking at newspapers of the time through chronicling American history. Make sure that your check boxes align with your comments. If you have a theme connection that's checked as novice, but then your comments are like, wow, great job explaining the theme, that doesn't make sense. You want it to be logical and make sense. Please do not indicate ranks or prize nominations on your evaluation forms. Those are for other forms. The other thing I want to say is be mindful that you're talking to young learners, and it's easy to crush their spirits. You don't want someone walking out and being like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Now, of course, students are going to be disappointed if they don't win. That's human nature. But you can uplift them in your comments, even if you're being critical. We're going to show you a little bit online. This is mostly for websites and papers. But when you go online, you will have our website and paper judges will have the project show up, and it will have a link to the evaluation form and a link to the project. So the paper will be one kind of PDF that has all of the written materials. The website is a website link, and the written materials will be uploaded in it. We will be handing out the ranking forms at the contest. We'll go on to the next one. And for paperwork pre-contest, so for our documentary, performance, and exhibit judges, you can see how each project is listed, and it will have where the written material is. So you'll see right where it says written materials view, that's where it is. This is from a couple years ago when, of course, everything was virtual. There's not going to be the link to the documentary. The students will bring that with them that day. And we tell them to bring it as a thumb drive on a DVD. And if all else fails, bring your laptop. And if they have to show it on a laptop, we'll do it that way. All teams will submit their rankings, even websites and papers, and special prize nominations on day of contest. And next steps and questions. So reminder, please check out the virtual contests. It's not virtual contests, the Z-Fairs link. You just need to make sure you can get into the system. And if you have any trouble, let us know. I will contact you when it's okay to look at the written material for website and paper judges to go ahead. We do ask, though, before you look at projects, please review the the category specific material. And as you're looking at your materials, if you suspect any of the disqualifying offenses, entering a project in multiple contests, tampering with another student, plagiarism, please contact us and let us know. We'll work with you on that. You have not heard from your fellow judges, you have a question, and if you see or hear anything either before or day of contest you think we should know, you can contact us at our email or call me prior to the contest. What to expect the day of contest. Dress in business casual and in comfortable shoes for the contest. You'll need to arrive by 7:45 for Hartford, that's 8. And plan to stay at least until 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30 for some of our bigger contests like Norwich and Fairfield and Mansfield. And please, as I said before, judging teams may not leave until their paperwork is reviewed. That means even if you've turned it in to us, don't leave until we've looked over it and given you the thumbs up and said, okay, because if we've had this happen before where a question arises, we can't read something, and we're calling judges trying to hunt you down. So please just stay with us until we have a chance to do that. Please keep information about student projects and paperwork confidential. It's really important that you do that, especially for website and paper folks who have a sense, an inkling of how the rankings are going to go. You cannot let anyone know. It's also important that you maintain confidentiality in the judging process. We had a judge last year who was showing projects to her students, and if you're judging, you cannot share this material with anyone but yourself. And we have a few questions that I'm going to get to in just a second. Let us know if you have any dietary restrictions. We are trying to work with all of our caterers to make sure that we can meet all of those needs. And, you know, it's going to be a fun day. And I really hope that you're all as excited as I am. And I'm getting texts and emails, and I'll get to them. Hang on to just a second. But, you know, we're really excited, and I think you'll be excited to meet these students. So let's cover some of the questions. One question is, how many projects teams will have to judge? That's going to vary depending on the contest, but I would say judges should expect to look at anywhere from between 8 to 11 projects. Now, 11's on the higher side of things, but we have had some contests where we have struggled so badly for judges that some of our judging groups are bigger. And also there's the issue of, okay, if you have 10 projects and you split them, then you only have 5 each to look at. And we do sometimes have no-shows. So I'd say anywhere between 8 to 11 projects. This video and the slides will be available to view later. As we went through, I was thinking, oh, I meant to change that. So I'll probably make a few tweaks before I do that. When should we hear from our captains? Well, I'm in the process of contacting people for the first couple contests. I would say you should expect to hear from them maybe a week and a half at least before the contest. We talked about how many projects per team. Oh, are printed evaluation forms provided on the day of the contest, or should we print them ahead of time? We actually will print for you. So we will have, for website and paper folks, we will print your completed evaluation forms. And then we also, for the other categories, we will have blank ones for you to fill in handwritten that day. So we'll have, and we've started putting them together. We have your judging form, judging folders with your name on it, ready to go for you when you walk in the door. Are there other questions that people had? I want to thank everyone. I know this has kind of run a little long, but I hope this has been helpful to everyone. I'm going to stay on because if you have other questions, we'll give you a chance to do that. But, you know, what our session for today is really focused on is talking about the bigger ideas of judging. You know, we didn't go into a lot of the specifics of, okay, a performance can only be 10 minutes and, you know, a website can only have 1,200 student written words. We will share that information with you. It's in the rules, but today was kind of getting our arms around the big ideas. So what is the goal of the interview portion? That's a really great question. And that's new for a lot of folks who've just been judging online. So the interview, the purpose of the interview, I should start by saying the interview is not judged. It is not, you judge on the project alone, but the purpose of the interview is to give clarification in terms of you, the judge, might have a question. Why did you put that source in primary or secondary? And it's also, you know, as I said kind of at the beginning, this is an academic program. And so part of the idea of that, is that it's learning to communicate verbally. So it's also a chance to just uplift students that, you know, they have adults who are really interested in what they're saying, and the students are the experts. I do just want to reiterate that you do not need to print off any forms. We will do that for you. I think there's some question perhaps going on in the comments, but we'll have it all printed for you. You know, that's why we're asking people to website and paper folks to have it done by Thursday night, because that gives us Friday to print it all out, but we will have those for you. But the interviews are not judged. You know, if a student says, well, my mom did my project, okay, then that's gonna raise a few flags, but it's really meant to give students a really opportunity to feel good about being the expert and learn how to communicate with adults. Are there other questions out there? You know, I don't know about you all, but sometimes when I have attended something, I think of a question like an hour later and think, oh, why didn't I ask that? If that happens, you have our email, info@historydayct.org. Email us, ask. Happy to answer. Are there anything?
Cindy's been keeping on top of everything.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are very excited to see you, and you will be hearing from us with our your judging assignments. And then also the week of the contest, we'll touch base with you to let you know where we're going to meet in terms of at the contest location and parking information. So we are sending out through both ZFairs and info@. So check your email. I know ZFairs emails sometimes show up in spam, so please make sure to check there. Oh, if we don't, okay, so someone's asking, if we don't know the student but are from the same district, can we judge that project, or do we have to say there's a conflict? I think if you have any conflicts, if you can tell us ahead of time. I was just having to switch a few people in Norwich because we had a teacher who was going to judge students from their school. So we're trying to like be proactive. And I do read, you know, when people say they have a conflict of interest. If, you know, this is part of what's good about consensus judging, that if it's a student you don't know personally, there are 2 other judges. And if you have to recuse yourself, you can do that. But we really don't want you to be judging students you personally know. Because that is very difficult. So like, and we can't know everyone you know. So let's say I'm judging, well, I never judge in Connecticut, but let's say Mariana's judging, and oh, it's the daughter of her best friend is one of the students. Oh no, you know, she should tell us and we need to switch her. So yeah, you want to avoid conflict of interest. at all possible. You know, sometimes we, if again, let's say Cindy's an example. Let's say there's a student from her school she doesn't know personally. The day of the contest, it's really hard to start switching people. We'll do it if it's really egregious, but if it's not, then we might have you stay with the group. But if you can let us know now, and this just happened as I was sending out assignments, someone got back to me and said, you know, I should have mentioned that I work with students at this school. So it was great she told us, and we just switched her. No problem. Any other questions?
No, just a lot of thank yous and great job.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're looking forward to seeing everyone. And I just want you to know I won't get to see everyone because we're going to divide up this year and have 6 contests in 4 weeks. But please know we are so profoundly grateful to all of you for signing up and coming out to judge the students. They've worked really hard, and I think you're in for a treat. And, you know, there's nothing like seeing these young historians excited and thrilled to meet you. So, you know, when we have our day of contest training, we'll go a little bit more over logistics and kind of stuff like the interview. And we will have step-by-step instructions that kind of tell you, you know, have a timekeeper, do this, do that, and trying to make it as easy as possible. But thank you so much for judging. I hope if you can judge it with us at Fairfield. We're still looking for about 20 judges, and do join us at the state contest on May the 6th because we'd love to have you. But thank you all very much. If anything comes up that's not clear, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in just a couple weeks.